Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode. I'm your host, Kirti. This week, I'd like to introduce to you someone I've known for quite some time, Paulina. Together, we're having this conversation on accent bias. It's something we frequently talk about and thought, why not have a podcast about it? Now, by no means are we experts, we're just sharing our experiences, and Paulina has done a lot of research behind it because she's very curious about it herself. Here is the episode.
I wanted to start off in introducing you. Where are you from? That question we get to be asked all the time.
That is a fantastic question. That touches upon our favorite topic, accent bias.
Yes, it does.
And I think that question is great because unlike some business networking, mainly people are asking you, what do you do? And that usually reflects on your professional life. But where are you from? It's basically a question, who are you? And like trying to locate you, place you somewhere in the social environment.
So where are you from?
I'm from Poland. I've been living in London for 12 years, so I also call it home. So I live in that space in between where I feel like I belong to both the countries. But London is not a country; it's a city. But it's a little bit like a country within a country. That's where I'm from.
That's a very interesting way of saying it. Like is like a country within a country. I do feel that as well because, like you, I have multicultures inside of me. So I have the opposite though. When people ask me, where are you from? I'm like, how do I answer that? Because there's no one word for it. It's like many things. And I'm like, are they up for like 5-minute conversation about this? But I get asked, where are you from a lot because it's associated with my accent. People confuse me for being American. I don't know if you get that as well.
Not anymore. And I think that my accent has softened a little bit. But I think initially, especially when I didn't feel so secure about the way about my English, and occasionally I felt that strangers asking me, where are you from? It wasn't necessarily hostile, but more to draw that distinction between we and them, you and me, as to emphasize that you are from somewhere else, you're not from here.
And I think
it can be a little bit awkward. I'm trying to assume that people are kind and welcoming and inclusive. But unfortunately, if you have accent, that also signifies certain baggage or privileges, depending from where you're from. So we cannot really change it unless someone is actively willing to change your accent. But it tells a lot about us, particularly in British society, where your accent can reveal not just where you're from geographically, but also your social class or social status. Not all accents are equal.
I find it very interesting that you're saying that because I know we have touched upon this in our conversations as well. And two things that came to mind for you. One question is, which I don't know which one to ask first, but I'm going to go and see in the sequences. When did you become first aware or conscious of accent bias in your personal life?
When I moved to Britain. One of the reasons is that Polish language is very homogeneous. You cannot really tell much about, where people or person is from unless they are from very small regions that have a separate dialect. But it doesn't reveal much about which school you went to. Perhaps that's something that we can be grateful for our roots or history under communism. So everyone is equal. there are not many private schools, so it doesn't really tell much about you. But when I came to Britain, it was not only because I had a foreign accent, but I also became aware that even among British people, there's a hierarchy of accents with received pronunciation, or also known as BBC accent or now King's speech, is something that is highly esteemed, and that's the accent that we hear in some more prominent professions, in maybe in media, in parliament, maybe teachers, doctors. They often speak that with that accent. On the other hand, some accents from historically working class regions like Liverpool, Birmingham, rated. Unfortunately, there is some bias, and it doesn't mean that everyone who's coming from the regions are working class, obviously, and it shouldn't be discriminated. But unlike some other characteristics like race, ethnicity, the accent is not protected under the Equality Act 2010. Mm-hmm. So that means that when we have the certain bias, that employers, for example, they can legally discriminate against accents.
So if I understand correctly, in Poland, everyone speaks with the same accent, largely due by the social upbringing during communist times, probably. And that has not filtered onwards. Whereas in England, if I summarize it correctly, depending on your social status and your background, you also have an accent, which is very evident. Even living here, I'm like, oh, I can see that. Mm-hmm. Where I asked myself is, when did you become so aware of that moment? Was there a moment in your time where something happened and you went, I see this so clearly? Was it in your work environment or your personal environment where you became very much aware of that?
I think it was maybe even catching my own bias, where I would see maybe workers in high jackets, and they are speaking a little bit differently from, I don't know, other people that I know. And I think that I cannot really think about one moment. I think that maybe reflects the evolution that children might go through as accent bias or our awareness of accents intensifies throughout our life cycle.
So when it comes to accents in general, you said your accent underwent a lot of change, but did you do that on purpose to change your accent? Was there a moment where you had to do that, or that made you more aware that there are different accents of English around you?
So initially, when most of my friends were other foreigners and we were all speaking variations of English, it didn't matter to me as long as we understood each other. But I think when I started working in environments where there were British only people, then I stood out. And I had one situation that was pretty embarrassing to me, but also shocking, where my manager suggested that I should take English classes. And at that point, I've been living in the UK for maybe 4 or 5 years. I've been in working in professional environments, using English at work, in professional work for a few years. I was doing my master's at British University. So it was quite a shock to me that, actually, people are struggling to understand me, or maybe so then I became much more aware of my accent, and I've been told that I should do something about it. Now looking back at it, I disagree with this judgment, and I did a lot of practice, including Toastmasters, where we've met, with maybe focusing more on merits. As I gained more confidence in my professional experience and competences, that accent became less of an issue. I think that naturally become less aware of that.
Did it affect your self-esteem?
Oh, hugely, hugely. It took me quite a few years to believe that, even until today. Sometimes, even talking to my child, I sometimes I think children are particularly difficult because I think that I cannot. Maybe most of us don't understand toddlers, or not everything what they are saying. And I think it works. It works both ways. That's especially at the beginning. I wasn't sure if maybe children understand me because I have a foreign accent.
I understand. I know. Aren't you being a little hard on yourself here?
Maybe, but I think that definitely motivated me to work hard as well. I had a moment where I was considering taking elocution classes.
Wow.
Just because I thought that would increase my professional opportunities. Then things just worked out by themselves, and I focused instead on doing a good job rather than trying to change my accent. And that would be the advice that I would have for the others.
Well, I like that you mentioned that because indeed you are right. There's so many, when I work with people with different accents, they're always here, oh, I should take elocution lessons, and especially in the West. And I go, but our accent is a part of our identity. I mean, I wouldn't ask of you to change anything that is from your Polish upbringing. I mean, that's so beautiful in its own way. So elocution is almost like forsaking that and letting go of that. That must mean a lot individually for someone, I would say. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's very intrusive, and it's a big problem. I think that we think that we need to fit into a certain hierarchy, because most of us do have accent bias, and there's nothing wrong about it. We are just humans. We have a certain history and associations. But the problem is when we start discriminating someone or making decisions that affect them in a negative way, either through employment or in a social setting, and then it becomes a problem, especially when it's more systemic. I'm aware that creative industries are particularly affected by the problem with a lack of diversity with accent. I'm thinking particularly about maybe when I mentioned about BBC accent.
So is it media or creative? Because I would think, like in the art world, in fact, you would want more of that. But in the media, yes, BBC has been under a lot of scrutiny for that in the past. I don't know if it still is. Yeah,
I think they are aware of that and trying to mitigate that issue. But some of the reports that I came across were particularly referring to PR communications industry, but that's also related to media. And I think for the whole society, that if we have limited exposure to different accents, then we might be more aspirational to speak in a certain way that might give us more opportunities, or it's simply how to say it, like it's simply perceived more favorably if you speak like a BBC presenter, and particularly now with cuts in budgets where they have less of the regional reporters. That means that we hear less of northern accents. So I quite like listening to the BBC World Service because that has quite a variety of accents and maybe reminding us about that rich tapestry and trying to broaden up our worldview.
It's something I don't think many people think about, and I feel you're tapping into this when we come back to it every time. Is that accent is so related in your wealth.
Mm-hmm.
They go hand in hand in some ways, but it's not. it's not very spoken about, because when we put accent bias, people just think about the accent itself or culturally. But there's also that social thread through it, which is what you're bringing up. If it's regional, what does that really mean? As
Mhm.
opposed to speaking that, I don't know what they have as particular word for it, the proper English,
Pronunciation.
Yeah, and I find that
I'm sorry, received pronunciation.
It's called received pronunciation.
It says received, as if received means some kind of acceptance to a certain social group. And I think the fact that accent often conveys our social background, but it can also convey our social status. Unconsciously, we may judge someone by the way they speak.
Well, I know I had that. I've had many times where people have met me and they go, "Oh, you're American." They haven't asked. They automatically assumed. And that's always before the "where are you from" question, right? And then but their whole facial structure changes when they go, "Oh, you're American." And I'm like, is there something wrong with American? But I'm not American anyway, but why you have an issue with it? And it brings up in that 1 second, brings up a lot of discomfort. And I'm going, oh. And then I feel like the burden is on me to make the room safer. And I go, why? You made that assumption. And that received pronunciation is always on the opposite side. And then I have to mildly, gently change the way I speak, just not my accent, but just to tell them, yeah, you shouldn't have assumed that. And I find that I always ask myself, what would have to change for that to reduce that assumption? I mean, we are living in the 21st century, What do you think?
I think it's an interesting one. Any change, cultural change, is difficult, and we need to focus on the individuals and their actions to make it collective. So I think it's about changing the societal norms. So accent is just one of the indicators of social inequality. And I think unless we have more of the economic equality, more of the social mobility in Britain, then that accent bias will always be there to some extent. Always? It's shocking, but maybe not always. But I think the impact of it is changing, and the accents are also changing over time.
Yeah,
but according to Accent Bias in Britain report, those perceptions of the received pronunciation accents as the highest rated accent did not change over 50 years. So I think it will be really difficult to challenge. And another interesting fact is that our perceptions of the accent, or maybe self-awareness around the way we speak, intensifies throughout our life. So as children, we are usually non-discriminatory, and we may notice that someone speaks a little bit differently, but we'll play with them anyway. But then, I think for most of the people who go to university, and that university might be further away from home, they would come across people who speak differently from themselves. Or maybe they could be singled out or mocked for the way they speak, particularly for Northern accents. And a lot of, actually, over 60% of Northerners, they reported at school, teachers were telling them to speak better, so they have better outcomes. So what else I wanted to add to it is that first, that kind of bias or maybe judgment around accent causes a lot of anxiety, particularly for the graduates who will be entering the workplace and being more aware how they might be perceived because of their accents, and because they don't have much of the experience, a professional experience to prove themselves through merit. Those first impressions really matter. and even professionals throughout their career, I know, like senior managers, they might also report that they have a lot of anxiety that the accent might hold them back. It's all on the negative side, but
No, I agree with you because I've worked with women from, and I'd say women because I've had majority of them have been women. And indeed, one of the biggest reasons why women don't stand up from different communities or different cultures is because of their accent. And I'm like, but you have so much to offer. And they go, yeah, but it's better if I'm in the background because, I don't have good quality of speaking. I go, well, what's holding you back? And often one of the core reasons is accent. And then they go, I need to speak to an English person for elocution. And I go, okay, well, when are we going to break this? Because this isn't causing you more anxiousness in the long run because you're flipping your authenticity, but not you're flipping it into something inauthentic. And then the workforce is saying, be authentic. How does that work?
Absolutely.
Because they're like against each other. So what would make you feel at ease? And the only thing is for every individual to become at peace with their accent and having more people speak, I would say, with different accent. That's why I understand when you say about media, having more speakers would make a big difference. But then what if the accent is very heavy that, like I can swallow my words sometimes. So I become more aware of where to place my tongue, but I'm not sure if that's elocution or not. It's just I want to be understood and I'll do what it takes to be understood, but I don't want to remove my accent. So I don't know, how do you do that?
I think the main question here is why would we want to I will use the term switch the code. So maybe maybe in certain environments with your boss at work, you might want to speak more clearly, maybe just because there is more at stake.
Yeah.
Well, in social environments with people, I don't know, like that you feel more comfortable with, you don't need to guard yourself that much. And I think to an extent, in a professional environment, whatever you do, you might need to fit into certain categories or expectations. So but at the same time, because if we bring a full of our, our full authentic self, I'll be going to work in pajamas. so that might not be the best.
Somebody said it and not just me. I find that so hard. It's like, be your authentic self. And I'm like, do you realize what you're asking? If you can be authentic in a professional code, but that means you have to have healthy boundaries. Even with your but do you need to change your accent when you have these healthy boundaries? That is my question, really. Do you need to change your accent to have those healthy boundaries?
In my opinion, no one should be forced to change their accent because it's such a intrinsic part of the identity. I mentioned earlier that unfortunately accent is not protected under the Equality Act 2010. However, they can be some other aspects that that are related to accents where you can be discriminated by proxy because your accent may be related to your ethnicity or social status. I would just mention, so my answer is no. And that we definitely should focus on people's qualifications because accent only tells you where you're from, where someone is from, but it doesn't tell anything about their intelligence, about their competences. And if we judge them as less intelligent or less competent because the way they speak, that is a huge problem. To an extent that I read an article recently about a call center in India that they were actually considering using the technology that would change speakers' accents to sound more English. And I found it absolutely horrific.
Well, for many
Because
years we were doing that, right? I would call an airline up, and I'd be in a call center, and I'm like, this person's Indian, and they have
Mhm,
a name that is not their real name, and I'm just like, how? Why are we saying yes to this? But that was
mhm,
years ago, but it's still happening. I'm surprised because I know
yes.
everything is computerized now. But call centers are still doing that?
Absolutely. And I think that that's definitely where we need a big cultural shift. Speaking of actually of voice and voice assisted technology, this
Yeah.
is also an interesting topic. And I hope you don't mind if I
No.
just briefly touch upon that. I don't know if you have seen, there is a really funny clip about a Scottish elevator. Two Scots get into the lift and they want to go to floor 11, and they simply cannot say that. The voice doesn't understand the accents, and they are trapped in the lift.
Yeah, I did see it.
I can share the link with you if you want to. So it is
Yeah,
quite funny.
really touching upon something really profound on the AI field that I don't think they've really realized.
Exactly. Like there is a lot of bias that has been revealed recently, where the data sets the AI has been trained on mainly included white men, reflecting also the people who are writing the code. And so
I'm
it
glad,
really
again, I'm glad that somebody else is saying this because we're not saying this enough. I don't think so.
absolutely, and I think the same concern we should have for voice assisted technology,
Yeah.
and try to train it with a diversity of accents, because otherwise we'll be doomed and we'll be stuck in the elevator.
Well, I know, like you said, it's not off from accent bias on with AI. I think it's a subject that definitely should get more visibility because it does
Mm-hmm.
make a difference, especially now. I mean, I keep getting daily, as an entrepreneur, you get a software that says, oh, have a facial person, have an artificial person speak. And I go, aren't we doing more labeling and putting people in, stereotyping them into boxes? And
Mm-hmm.
that's just really not the case. I think the importance for being personalized and having good communication skills are now ramped up to be
Mm-hmm.
personalized. And I remember typing in, and this is way off, but typing in, like, I wanted something about multicultural perspective from a woman. And I put it into AI. And what did I get? Sorry, you shouldn't. This is not in my capacity to share this. But when I typed it for as just a man, I got a whole list, same questions, just by changing the gender. Then I did that with
Wow.
AI photos. And when I put in doctor, 9 of them were all male and maybe one was female. And that also completely, the hands were different color, the face was a different color. And it made me question, while everyone's racing to the AI conversation, are we not racing a little bit too much? And this will be the same for accent bias, that we won't realize maybe the consequences in the long run because we're doing all of
Mm-hmm.
this so quick without any control. But how can you control that? Is what I ask myself.
Yes, but we definitely need the government to put some regulations and legislations in place about AI ethics. But I think that what is really important here is to focus on eradicating or minimizing our own biases when we create those technologies. They can be wonderful. They can really enhance our they can be wonderful tools that can make us all more productive, and maybe hopefully free up, like this a little bit more utopian, to do more of the things that we like doing.
But Paulina,
But
have
we
you
def-
come across any studies or articles or that indicate that they are having some kind of an ethic association? Because I haven't come across. I don't know if you've come across, especially around the AI development, and which would include accent bias.
do you mean in terms of voice assisted technology?
Because
Just
I
a
know you
second.
always do your research beforehand, which I really admire you for that. So I was like, well, I haven't been able to come across it. Maybe you've had more luck than I have.
I came across just I haven't done a very in-depth research, but one of the recent research said about Alexa and other smart speakers struggle to understand 23% of accents in the UK.
In the UK alone, that's high.
Yes, it is. It is. That's a lot. And Welsh accent apparently was most difficult to understand. So they also should be careful with getting into the Welsh elevator.
How do you know? I don't know if you've had this, but whenever we flag delicately, I know in the English community, it's struggling to be very direct. I know that the Dutch personality in me likes to be direct and just say things as they are. It's just like, all right, let's go in. Well, if accent bias is an issue, how do you address this? Direct, not so indirect. I mean, you know what I mean?
Oh, gosh, that's actually a very sensitive topic, because you cannot simply just call someone out like, oh, that's a bit biased. I came across, maybe I'll speak from perspective of Polish or Eastern European culture. Yeah. We are also quite direct. We may come across as not smiling much, and even being so direct that we sound a little bit rude. Like, the simple example would be, you sit around the dinner table and British person would say, "Oh, wouldn't mind passing me some salt?" Well, maybe a Polish person would say, "Oh, give me salt," and it's not with the. So I had actually so many situations with my partner where he was like, "Oh my god, it's just very direct." So I actually adapted over time, and maybe I didn't realize that I may come across as a bit rude or too direct by British standards. But at the same time, I think it's so much easier that I don't know if that's something that you come across in Dutch or Caribbean culture, but Eastern Europeans, like, when they are angry, they are angry. And like, if someone is angry, they will shout at the street. And I just find it so much easier to communicate, because at least I know what to expect.
It's out of your system.
Yes. And I have 3 sisters, so I went through a lot of emotional drama.
I've I don't know if it's a sisters thing, because I have 3 sisters too, and we have to almost get our voices heard, when we were younger.
Yes.
So a little bit of the directness and indirectness was also there. And my mom was like, okay, now let's send you off to the UK to have an education. So some of the indirectness now flows in.
But that's a very interesting way. Like, I'm learning some of the, yeah.
So the thing is, when you started off and you said your background matters and what's behind an accent, there's so much more.
Absolutely.
Than the accent. It tells, in some ways, it actually tells you, like you said, it doesn't tell you the competence, doesn't tell you the intelligence. When I had first moved here in 2018, I would sit in the back of the room of the public speaking sphere. And when I would speak, somebody would actually tell me, they go, "Oh, we underestimated you." And I thought, because of my accent and my height, you underestimated me? I'm like, what does that say? So that means every time, and it is hard when you go into corporate spaces, they've already labeled you the moment you step foot into the room. And I was like, do I have to change and wear jackets and jeans, trade everything just so you can see me as an equal before I say something, and then you're going to judge me on my accent? And I found that very pressurizing. So I decided, like, I'd rather take the loss than the win, because the accent doesn't say anything about your background. It does and it doesn't. It does to me. It says a lot, but to others,
you should be the one who takes over the narrative, rather than the others making up stories about yourself without knowing your actual background.
But I don't know if you had this. Do you not find that after a while you feel like you're constantly defending your authenticity because of your?
Mm, yes, yes, because it's. I think like if you have to work so much harder. I think it all boils down to good communication. Ultimately, we would like to be perceived positively. We all like to be want to be liked, accepted, and and we want to be understood, whatever it means. So we might need to be defensive. It's like, oh, that's not what I meant, or try to maybe over-explain what is your background, because your accent might be deceiving. But I think that yes, exactly. But I think just more on the being more solution oriented. I think it requires the work on both sides with trying to improve communication. So
Well,
rather than making the accent to be a barrier, it could be a really nice conversation starter, where we can find what we have in common despite being from different backgrounds. Kirsty, I think you and me, we are really good examples that we kept trying. And it's not that we've spoken once in a in a room full of people that we were afraid that might judge you, that we did some public speaking. Well, you did much more. But I think that confidence and tolerance to being judged increases over time. Maybe not being judged, but tolerance to
I
to
feel you
to
hit
not
the head though. You hit the nail on the head. It's the confidence with yourself. If you have the
yes,
confidence with your own accent that I don't need to shift my accent, it changes
absolutely.
the entire conversation. At least that's how I feel. So for me, it was like make peace with the fact that I enjoy my accent.
And I think that also links to just knowing yourself, knowing what are your strengths and weaknesses. And if there are any weaknesses or you think that your accent might be a weakness, acknowledge it. If someone doesn't understand you, you can say, oh, probably it's my accent. But I have something else to offer. And we've overcome a lot of mental barriers so we can actually speak. We can talk to each other in a podcast today because we believe we have something to say, we have something to share, that we have a right to have that voice and take that space. And I think it's really important to. That's something that I would like to encourage anyone who may be afraid of being judged because of their accent. Just keep trying and see what is the worst thing that can happen.
Or what's the best thing that can happen?
Absolutely.
But having said that, I'm going to end up with that. I think that's a beautiful message for us to round up today. Paulina, thank you. Thank you for coming on the podcast today and sharing and having a conversation about accents. I think it's very crucial that we share this out and make it more visible. Hopefully,
Absolutely.
AI will take some notes here. And so, thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Kirsty.
And that's it. It's a wrap. Let me know what your thoughts are. And if you found this episode useful and you know somebody who would like to hear it, do share it out with others. It also helps us getting more people to think about accent bias when you hit share and follow. Thank you so much for joining us. Until the next one.